Hey there, it's Pete at PE Teach Pete here. We're obviously approaching the exam season. We've had mocks recently and end of year exams coming up. So I've had a lot of staff speak to me about how I analyze my results and how I get so much data. So today what I'd like to do is look at spreadsheets and some of the most useful tools for teachers. So let's dive straight in. Okay, so what I have here is I have some fake exam grades for students who are actually just named after superheroes. In actual fact, this was a table created for me by ChatGPT. So I've created other videos on that, so check them out. So we've got all of these. So some things that might be useful first off. So we take our table here, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at our data, okay, and we'll create a filter. Now that will just put a filter on all of these top rows here. You can put it anywhere, but it makes sense for it to be the top row. So I'm now going to rearrange this in terms of A to Z by their date of birth. And you can see 13th of the 2nd, 2005 here, up to the 14th of the 8th, 2006. So there's the youngest, okay, up to the oldest here. Sorry, other way around, oldest up to the youngest. So just some ideas there. We might want to actually now think about, okay, I just want to see the students who have pupil premium. So I click on here and I'm going to take out the no's and I'm just going to have ticked yes. Okay, so I've now got all the students with pupil premium. I might want to see those with pupil premium and SEN. So if I take out the no's here, I've now got the filter on both. Notice this little logo here that shows that we've got the filter. So it could be that you might find if you're using filters, if you leave one on, that will affect the overall number. Because if I were to take this one off now, and let's just select all, okay, we can see we've got more students there. So you can filter by more than one, but if you are filtering, if you forget that you've got this on, that will obviously have an impact on your overall data. Now the next most useful feature is a little more advanced, and we'll come back on some other things later, but I think this is really, really useful. If we've got a set of exam marks like this, and let's say that they're percentages, we can turn those into grades quite easily. So let's think about how we do that. And so we'll put in here, we want to put in our grade. Okay, now I could work it out. I've got a set of data here, so I could be looking up and go, okay, 84 is a 9. So this student's got 80. So hold on, is that a 9? No, so 76 is an 8. So this student has got an 8. Then we're looking up 68. So let's have a look. 68 would be here. So this student has got a 6, and so on and so forth. Now that's great, but it all takes time, and every single exam you do, if you have to do the same thing again, it's a massive amount of time. So all of these things are kind of front loaded to take a little bit more time in the first instance, but then save you masses of time in the future. So what I'm going to do is I've got this set of data here that is their mark and their grade. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just select this and I'm going to give this set of data a name. Okay, so I'm just going to call it grade lookup. So to do that, again, I'm using Google Sheets. There's something very similar on Excel and other spreadsheets, but I'm going to I'm going to go to data and I'm going to go to named ranges. And I'm going to give it the name of simply grade underscore lookup. Okay, then it's already got what it is. So data lookup, that's the sheet here from B2 to C12. So B2 to C12, it's all there. So I'll just hit done. So I now have a table that's called grade lookup. So why is that useful? Well, let's have a look here. What I want to do is I want to look up this in my table. So let's go with this and have a look. So I'm going to use a thing called vlookup or vertical lookup. So I'll type in vlookup. Okay, when I click on it, so starting with equals and vlookup as always, I then open the brackets and it's going to ask me, okay, what do you want to look up? Well, I want to look up that figure there, the 80. Then what do I want to look up in? And you can actually see that if I hit the question mark here, it'll help me. So the search key is 80. What's my range and what's the index? Now, one thing I'll say here, just because this has come up, is it needs to be sorted. Your data does need to be sorted. So it needs to start at 0 and go up to 9 in that order. And it can't go backwards, can't work out that backwards very well. So again, let's go back to where we were. I'll go over here, and so the range. So the range I'm looking up is what I just did. So it's grade lookup, and as I type it in, it should come up both on Excel and Sheets. And then the data lookup, well, I'm looking up this and I want to bring back the third column. So it's telling me I always on vlookup, it will look up the first column here and it will return the value in the third column that fits within that data range. So it's column 2 here, and often we will just be using 2 column things. So let's have a look here. So I need to put the comma, and then column 2. So let's just go over that again. I've got equals vlookup. E2 is what I'm looking up. The range that I'm looking it up in is called grade lookup. That's the data that I've just named earlier. And I'm looking up column 2 to return the value that's in column 2 according to this value here. And if I hit enter, up I get is 8. Now the great thing about spreadsheets is when we copy and paste the relative lookup. So here, if we go E2, we won't look up E2 on this column, we would look up E3, then E4, and so on. So I can copy that by Control C. I'm then going to highlight my whole column, and I'm going to use Control V to paste it. And suddenly, I've instantly got those grades there, looked up, nice and quick. Now let's say, for example, we had another set of grades, and I'm just going to assume that we've got a set of grades, and I'm just going to put them in here, and I'm going to just take this one and take 12 off of it for all of them. So just some simple maths. Whenever I put equals in, I'm going to do the maths. So I want to do that. This one minus 12. It's nice and simple. So I should have the answer 68 there. And I'm going to just copy that all the way down. Again, the relative thing will change. And what that means is I can then use exactly the same, just cut and paste it in, and look, I've got 6 here. So I can actually take this whole column, because it's all looking up a relative one next to it, and when I put it in here, it will just do it for that new set as well. Okay, so nice and simple. Look how quick that was, having spent the time on the first one. Now I'm just going to remove this data here because that's not really relevant to what we're going to do here. And let's just smarten up this because I like it to look correct. And we'll put the tables around that. Okay, so here I've got my exam data now. I've got their marks and I've got their grade as a result. Now let's just look at some simple maths that we could do. Okay, I'm just going to put in another column here. So right click on the column. I can then insert to the left. Now let's imagine that this was out of 90. Okay, so we'll put here and put exam percent. Okay, and we want to be looking up percentages here, not exam grades. So how do I do an exam percent out of 90? I know it's out of 90, so I'm just going to go equals, okay, then reference to the cell by clicking on it. So equals E2 divided by 90 times 100. Okay, some simple maths that will give me, whoops, a percentage. What did I do wrong there? E2 divided by 90 times 100. Oh, it's going to put a bracket on the end, sorry. Okay, and we've got that here. So I'm just going to click and look, this auto fill in Google Sheets now will fill it all the way down. So brilliant. But all of these numbers now are a bit of a nightmare. So I don't want to be looking at them like here. So I'm going to select that whole column and I'm going to format my data. So I'm going to format number and I'd like it to 1 decimal point. Click that there and I've suddenly got it to 1 decimal point. Now this information here is now wrong because it was looking up this exam mark. So let's start again with this. I'm just going to delete it all. And now we'll look at the VLOOKUP again. So equals VLOOKUP. Okay, what am I looking up? Well, now I'm looking up that one. Okay, and it was called grade lookup, which has come up there. And I'm looking for the second column as the reference. So there we go, and it will auto fill down. So we've got some There's some really good exam grades here actually. So there we can see some simple maths equals the mark divided by what the exam was out of times 100, and we just put that in another column. And then we use exactly the same with our vlookup to look up those marks depending on what data you've got. Now as a teacher, we are often interested in who we should target. So a nice way of doing this is just to look at this data and use conditional formatting. So let's say that I want to highlight all of the students who have achieved below a grade 4. So I'm just going to highlight the whole box here, and I'm going to go up here and I'm going to go to Format and Conditional Formatting. I'll get up a box over here, so it will flash up on Excel, but I'm applying it to this range. And what's my format, what's my rule? So I'm going to say if it is less than, and the value is 4, what am I going to do to it? Well, I'm just going to make it that sort of reddish colour, okay, so it targets. And we can see straight away that we've got those there. So we've got 2 students who are achieving less than a 4. Let's add another rule. So I might want to have, if they're achieving between a 4, or let's just start, in fact, let's just start by saying if they achieve is equal to a 4. So we've got format cell if it's equal to 4, and we'll do done there. And then we get all the students. There's only one student who's currently on a 4. And then we can do a greater than. So format is, where's this greater? Oh yeah, greater than 4. And this time I'd like that to be a light green colour. Okay. Now I've just realised that this 4, it naturally did that. I'm going to make that a yellow colour. It naturally brought out the green. So let's go with that. So we can see some pretty good grades here. If only all classes were like that. A. So let's go now. We want to actually look at an 8 or a 9. So I'm going to put this here, and I'm going to, in fact, change something in a moment. So a new rule. Sorry, let's cancel that because I need to. In fact, let's just add another rule. And if I want to select data afterwards, I can select the data using this thing here. I'll come in here and select from the bottom to the top of that data. So G2 to G30. Okay, and what are we going to have here? So I'm going to say if the cell is greater than or equal to 8. So greater than or equal to, so anything 8 or above will be in this, and I'm going to make that a really bright green. But look, when I look at it, that hasn't worked because the order in which we have conditional formatting matters. So let's have a look at the conditional formatting. I'll bring that up. And we've got them all here. Now, so what it's doing is if it's less than 4, it's turning it red. If it's then equal to 4, it's turning it orange. Then if it's greater than 4, it's turning it this light green. Then if it's greater than 8, it's trying to turn it this other green, but it's already done this. If I swap these around, which I can drag and drop on the, on the side here, suddenly it's now doing that one and then that one. Okay, I'm going to make that greater than 9 because otherwise it's too much. Okay, so I've got all my 9s as this bright green colour. I've got my 7s, my 8s, and so on. Okay. So conditional formatting gives us a nice visual representation of our grades, but actually we often need more data than that. So I'm going to create something at the side here that will just do the maths for me to tell me how many of each of the grade I've got. So I'm going to go 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and maybe a 0. So I now want to use another function called a countif. Okay, so I'm going to put number here. So I want to know how many 9s there are in here. Now again, I could go through, they're all bright green, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, you know, that's all well and good. Happy days, but if I have to do that for each number and I have to do it every time, that adds up. So I'm going to just use a function to do it for me. So I've got it equals, and I'm now going to use a countif function. Okay, so I will count this if certain things happen. So let's go over here, and I'm going to Click on here. So the range and the criterion. So what range am I using? Well, I'm using this whole range here. So I'm just going to click on the GG. Okay, get G, and it's like the start and end of a column G. By clicking on there, we get this G colon G. That means the whole of the column, and that will go on until the end of the spreadsheet. But that's okay as long as we haven't got any data down here, such as averages or something like that, because they will be counted. Okay, so we've got that. So there's our range. And then we need the criterion. Well, what's the criterion? What are we trying to count? Well, we're trying to count the number 9. So I could put in a 9, but I'm just going to click on this cell here. And whatever I put there, it will be in there. So we've now got 12. Look, it guesses it for me. We'll do the autofill. Absolutely superb. Brilliant job. Now from that, of course, I can get a percentage. So let's work out our percentage. How many students are on a grade 9? So again, I could think about this, but look, let's have a look at this. So I'm going to add up all of these. So let's start off with sum, and the sum. So what do we want the sum of? Well, value 1, value 2, and so on. So I can just drag down all of these cells, close my bracket, and it will give me a sum of all of how many grades it's counted. Okay, so let's say a student didn't do the test. Okay, that will obviously impact what's here and zeros, so you'd want to take that data out. Just be aware of that the data of a student, if it's blank, you will get some zeros in there, and that might well skew your data. So just watch out for that. Okay, so how do I get a percentage? Well, I want to do a percentage of 12 out of 29. Okay, so I'm going to do equals 12, or click this cell, out of the total and times 100. So we've got 41.3. Again, I don't like all of these numbers. So with the whole column here, I'm just going to format the number and do it to 1 decimal place. So I've got 41.4 of my class on a grade 9. How nice would that be? So now if I copy it down though, let's just copy it down to the next cell, and we'll see that there's an error here. So that's a bit strange, but let's think why. So it's J6 that it's looking up. Okay, so that's this one here. So 7. Okay, but it's looking it up against J16. So where's J16? Well, J16 is the square I've got the box around here now. So remember I said that when we cut and paste, it will take the data down with it. So in other words, what it's looking up is it's looking up 7 divided by this number. So that's not very helpful to us, but spreadsheets have a way of keeping the data stuck. And now what we do is we use a dollar sign. So I want to always look up J15. So if I put the dollar sign before the J, okay, it will always stick to column J. If I put the dollar sign now before 15, it will always stick to 15. So when I copy and paste now, what we'll find is we get some sensible, returns of data. And I always put a check in here by adding a sum, because once we've got all the percentages, that should add up to 100, and it does. So I know that that data is correct. So one of the interesting things, of course, is that this magic number 4, we often want to know how many students are achieving at least that. So what we can do is we can just use some simple maths again. So if I go, so I'm going to put here as percent at least. Sorry, I've put the equals already, which has messed things up there. So let's go here, percent at least. Okay, and now, well, how many of them have got 9 and grade 9? Well, that's just this value here. So I'm just put equals and that square. Okay, now it's going to just copy these down. I don't want it to copy down now because it will just copy the whole of that, and I don't want that column repeated. So I'm just going to say no for the autofill here. Well, how many students have got an 8 grade? Well, a percentage is simply the number who got 8 plus the number who got 9. So there's the number that got 9. So here I'm going to put equals the one above plus the one to the left. So in other words, the number that got 9 plus the number that got 8 to give me the numbers that got 8 and 9. So now again, I can do equals the one above, that's the number that got 8 and 9, plus those that got 7. Then the ones that got 7, 8 and 9, plus those that got 6. So now I can copy that down. So again, Control C, bring it all the way down, and Control V, and I should end up with 100%. So when I look at this, what a lovely class that would be, to be getting 93.1% in exams. So I hope that's really useful. The vlookup I use all the time, and this idea here of countif I use all the time. So I hope that's really useful. There's a lot of data in there that I use an awful lot, and once you've got it set up, it's then easy to add more and more columns for each of your assessments, so you can really see how students are getting on. Elsewhere, I've got some simple mathematics in another video where we can work out the sums, included it there, but also averages, ranks for who's first, who's second, who's fifth, who's ninth, who's 23rd, and so on. And also just looking at some general data in terms of maximum, minimum scores, and creating a graph of overall scores so we can see if our assessments create that bell curve that we're always looking for in assessments. So I hope that's really helpful. If you need to get in touch, best place to find me is Twitter @PETeachPete. That's where I put most of my information on. And if you've got any specific requests or things that you want to be able to do in the classroom using EdTech, then please send me a DM on Twitter. Hope that's helpful. See you around.